Yes, you're watching another Rust Locker video, and as you may be able to tell from the background, I've been fitting a T.R LANE Roll bar to my MX5. And in this video I'm going to show you the steps that I took to fit it, and then hopefully you're going to be able to fit one too. Okay, so the first thing is to take off the wind deflector and this style bar. So we'll undo these couple of bolts, get all this off. Unnecessarily long bolts. Look at that. Okay, wind deflector is out. So now what we're left with is just one bolt there. So yeah, this would be no use in a crash. That one's not even tight. Okay, I'm going to try and lift up this bit of carpet here, so these trim clips need to come out. I found a good technique for removing these without snapping them is to kind of get them started with a flat braid screwdriver, just a little bit, don't pull them too hard. And then when you can get your fingernails under it, you're going to kind of unscrew them back and forth, and that kind of just works the little teeth on the clip out. And go gently so you don't snap the plastic head part off. And if you just kind of just work them like that, you can get them out without damaging the teeth too badly. Right, there's a whole other bunch of trim clips that have got to come out here, and taking them out with your fingers sucks. So I've got my trim removal tool, and I'm going to use that. So if you've got one of these, I definitely recommend it. Only a couple of quid at the tool shop, and you can just pop these clips out a lot more easier than wiggling them with your fingers. There you go. So I'm going to take out all the trim clips that hold this carpet in, get the carpet out, and then we can get to the parcel shelf underneath. Basically, I think there's a lot of trim that's got to come off of here, so I'm going to crack on with that. I'll be back in a sec. Right, so the parcel shelf carpet is now completely out. I had to undo a couple of screw holder things that were holding the carpet down there, and I realised why the old roll bar wasn't screwed in properly, and that is someone had just tried to put a self-tapping bolt straight into another bolt, which obviously is never going to work. But anyway, that's beside the point. I think now this metal piece has got to come off here, and probably the seatbelt towers, so I'm going to take those apart. Okay, so here's the deal. Basically, this is how dismantled we are at the moment. I had to take apart the plastic seatbelt shroud, which involved taking off the weather stripping and undoing this, undoing the little thing that was there. I'll show you on the other side, it will make more sense. I even took out the seatbelt bolt at the top here. Be very careful, because look at the amount of spacers and washers that are bolted onto that go inside. So careful not to lose any of these. I've put them all back on in the same order and taped them up. But as I say, let's have a look at the other side. Basically there's a screw here which had to come out. These two Torx bolts here, they're T40 fitment. They needed to come out. This weather stripping along here, this had to come off. I even pulled out the kick plates. They just pop out, which allowed me to get to the weather stripping behind here and pull that out, and this plastic piece needs to come out. You have to take these plastic bits out in order to get to these two bolts there to remove this. So yeah, I'm going to work on this side, remove that, and then hopefully this metal part should come out. So we're out. Got quite a lot of stuff all over the place, but once you remove this metal part, then you can get to the strong metal down there where the roll cage is going to bolt into, So the next job, I'm going to get the roll cage down here and I'm going to try and fit it in and see where the holes need drilling for it. Okay, as you can see here, I've had to do a bit of cutting. Basically, this downward part that holds the parcel shelf in really needs to come out. It gets wedged on the bar as you try and put it in. So I've seen online other people have done it, and it only holds the thin sheet metal for the parcel shelf in, so it's not structural. And there's plenty of other bolts that hold that parcel shelf in, so I don't think it's going to cause too much aggro to get rid of this. So what I've done is I've basically used some metal snips to snip this part away and then cut as much of it away as I can, which has left me with this. Now hopefully that gives me enough room to slide the bar in without it getting caught up on the lip. Otherwise I may have to cut some more away, but I'm going to do this on the other side now. Okay, turns out I've made a mistake. Do not need to cut away these angle tabs, you just need to cut this bit there and then remove this section. So now I'm a little bit buggered because I have cut out these front sort of L-shaped tabs, but again I think the parcel shelf will be secure, and if not I can always replace this L-shaped tab, screw in a new angle bracket there. But for anyone trying this at home, basically it's this 4 inches that you need to remove, and then you can leave the angle tab there. Apparently I'm going to take the whole lot out from there all the way to there, and I'm going to see how it goes. What I've done is I've undone a lot of these parts of the wiring harness just to give it a bit of looseness. There's a couple of bolts here. I'm undoing these. I'm pretty sure the roll bar actually bolts into one of these, I'm not sure. But either way, these are stopping the plates of the roll bar going in, so I'm undoing these 2 bolts there. They don't appear to actually be holding anything in on the other side of this, which is good, because if it had dropped then I'd probably be buggered. So I'm undoing those, and then I think we're getting close now. This is a nightmare. What I've had to do is bite the bullet and start detaching all of this wiring harness, undoing all the tape that's holding it down, undo as many clips as I can, just to get some of this loose so that I can get it up and out of the way when the feet of the roll cage go in. Other than I don't think I can undo this anymore. There's one clip over there that I could probably undo, get this up out of the way. I think that's the only way to do it. If you're going to try and get it in and up and over these wires, I'm really starting to risk the plate of the roll cage damaging the wires, and I do not want to fuck up my wiring loom. That would be super bad eggs. Right, after another 15 attempts, I've worked out that you actually need to cut a bit more out of the metal here. Stabbed myself. Right, basically, where are we? Pretty much this entire tab here needs to come out as well, or at least another, I don't know, inch. I'm just going to take the whole lot out to that line because I'm done messing about. So that all needs to come out. Again, there are no bolts for the parcel shelf in this bit, so there shouldn't be a problem. Plenty of bolts along the back, and it's still at the front for it to bolt down to. I'm going to have to start snipping bits out of the parcel shelf anyway to fit it back in. I just want to get this damn bar in. Okay, so we're in. Now, we're not actually bolted down. It is in, and I am going to be able to bolt it down. The first thing you need to do, I think, is to line up these seatbelt bolts and get it sort of an equal distance, you know, in the middle. As you can see down there, there's a slight gap in the plate, so I want that gap to be pretty much equal both sides, so then the bolt can pull it together. What I've actually done is I've reordered the spacers that I spent so long trying to keep in order. I've reordered them so that I've got a wider washer, the flatter wider washer on either side of the metal plate for the roll bar rather than these thinner ones. I just thought it'd spread the load a little bit better. So I've tightened up these bolts loosely. I'm going to get it in the right kind of position, then I'm going to tighten these down, and then I'll get to drilling for the bottom plates. So what I'm doing at the moment is I'm fitting the side plates, and you just have to drill a hole through the side wall plate here. You have to actually remove the seatbelt tensioner, which is just one 10mm bolt at the top and one 17mm bolt at the bottom, and the whole seatbelt mechanism thing comes out, which allows you access behind there to do that bolt up. I'm going to put a little bit of thread locker on this nut so that it doesn't work its way loose, and then I'm going to tighten the nut up completely. Right, so I've got the two side mount bolts in, replaced the seatbelt reels, they're thread locked in and tightened right up. I've managed to drill holes for these two downwards bolts. I now need to jack the car up to get to the bolts underneath to tighten the nuts up. So as it stands, we're getting there, we are getting there. Next thing is probably going to be jack the car up and fit those bolts. It's going to be a real bugger to get a drill for those rear holes. So things on the internet say drill up from underneath, so mark the holes on top with a heavy hole punch, but even that seems difficult to me. So yeah, the next thing I'm going to do is jack it up and then bolt those down, and then at least I'll know they're in the right place. Right, so I've jacked the car up, put it on axle stands, taken the wheel off, taken off the inner arch liner here. Realised I should have done that when I did my rust prevention from under here, so all this is going to need cure rusting before the arch liner goes back on. Doesn't look as bad as it, I mean it isn't as bad as it looks, is what I'm trying to say. Anyway, up and under here we can now see the new bolts from where I've just drilled through to mount the roll bar. So I'm going to tighten these up with some thread locker and then work out how to do the other two bolts. Okay, so this was the trick. What I did was I actually ended up filing down this little screwdriver to make myself a punch, which was just about the right length to get inside the hole there, punch it down, which then made a little tiny divot, which I was then able to drill through, and turns out, yeah, spot on. Right, so the first bolt hole was actually pretty easy with my punch. There was no way I could even get that punch in to do the second bolt hole, so what I did was I used the plate that T.R LANE provide, the backing plate for these two bolts, and I kind of used it as a template and kind of just guessed where the hole needs to go. I was actually wrong the first time, but it did give me a tiny, I just used a small drill bit, and although I was wrong, it showed me that I just needed to go over this way a little bit by about ½ centimetre. So then I drilled another small pilot hole, and that was central, so I knew I was good. And then I made a bigger hole with a bigger drill bit. So now I just need to cure rust underneath here so that it doesn't get any worse. Put the backing plate on, tighten the bolts up with a bit of thread locker, and this side is done. Right, so it's the next day. I've now secured the roll bar completely in position, bolted down front and back, both left and right. With the plates in. Now that it's in, I've got to try and work out how I'm going to run the wiring. Now, first issue that I've come across after plugging in these wire boxes here is there's an earth cable that used to bolt in to a hole that is now behind this plate. Seeing as I haven't got a tap and die set to create a new bolt hole anywhere, and there aren't any that are reachable for me to bolt it into, what I'm going to do is I'm going to drill a small hole where I'm going to mount it, and I'm just going to use a self-tapping screw to hold it into the bodywork. So that's the next job. I'm going to do that. Afterwards I then need to sort of cable tie the wiring loom back down so that it's all secure. On this side I have another ground thing, a ground thingamajig that needs to be also bolted into the bodywork. After that's done and I've tidied up the wires, then I can get to sort of putting some of the trim back and working out how the parcel shelf's going to go back in. Right, so I've neatened up the wiring as best I can, managed to screw in the ground connections using self-tappers and re-cable tied. So next job is to try and refit the parcel shelf. Now obviously some parts are going to need cutting out to accommodate for the roll cage or the roll bar. So I think it's just going to be a case of fit it, cut a bit, fit it, cut a bit until it works. Right, so as you can see I've marked off where I think I need to cut out of the metal parcel shelf. I wouldn't pay too much attention to this if you're doing it yourself. I'd make your own measurements because this could well be wrong and I've made a mistake, but I think that if I chop that piece out and that piece out, that piece out and that piece out, it technically fits in the gap of the parcel shelf. Now as to whether I can then slot this in with the roll bar installed is another matter, so I may then have to cut more pieces out. So that's why I'm saying don't use my video as a template. This is just what I'm doing. I'm going to give it a go and see what happens. So I'm going to snip these bits out now and I'll be back with you in a sec. So here's what I ended up doing. I took out the chunks either side, but there's no way to sort of get it in one side and then get it in the other, so I decided I was going to chop the bugger down the middle. So that's what I did. So I've chopped it down the middle, managed to get this one side piece in. I can bolt that down, bolt the other half down, give it a little bit of masking, give it a little bit of duct tape around the middle part there, and once the carpet goes over you'll never know. Okay, I admit that's a little bit ghetto, but it all fits in fine. I've taped down the middle there, didn't really even need it once it was bolted in, but I just taped that down so that the two metal edges wouldn't sort of rub together and rattle whilst driving along. I've also put a little liner tape down the sharp edges there just in case anyone ever sticks their fingers behind there, it doesn't get jabbed. So next thing is just put all the carpets back and the trim back, and then we'll be done. Well, it's the next day again, so 3 days off and on I've been doing this. So basically where we're at the moment is I've got one side reassembled, all the interior put back, seatbelt post and stuff. I thought I was done yesterday, but I'm not, because what you actually have to do is trim some of the seatbelt pillar. Basically what you need to do is trim off this lip. Trim off this lip here down to about there, so that it slides in between the roll cage and the metal work of the body. So that's what I'm going to do now. Okay, so effectively from about this point here all the way down here, and I even cut around there. So that is the lip that you want to cut off. I found the easiest way to do it. Was with the same metal shears that I've been cutting the parcel shelf with, and a very sharp Stanley knife. Obviously, safety first. I've already cut my thumb really deep. So that's a mistake I keep learning over and over again. Okay, what you want to do is use your metal shears to kind of snip sections away of this, and then you can go along, which leaves you a jagged edge, which you then clean up with the knife. What you don't want to do is stress the plastic too much and cause cracks in the piece of the plastic that you want to be keeping, so that's why it's better to do it in little chunks rather than try and snip along there and stress the plastic, which will cause all kinds of nasty lines. It's always advisable to cut a little bit less plastic at first, check that it's going to fit, and then cut more. So I'm actually going to change that line to there, and then we can always trim a little bit more away if we need to. Another thing that you need to trim off is this little tube part here. It doesn't show from this side. I don't actually know what it does. It probably just holds it in place, but the roll cage is going to hold that in place. So we need to trim off this little tubey nub bit. With a bit of gentle persuasion, it should fit between the gap. Another thing you might have to do is trim off the little tab, or a piece of that tab that goes around the seatbelt bolt and connects at the back, but still leave enough for the middle clip part to go in. Well, next thing I had to do was trim the carpet and the underlay piece that goes underneath it, and it's a pretty rank job because this rubber piece is actually glued with some really sticky, horrible glue to the carpet. So I had to just trim this piece around the bars, and now I'm going to lay the carpet in and do the same thing. Right, and the final step was to cut the carpet around the bars and fit that back down to the rubber underlay. I'm not the best carpet fitter in the world, but I did the best I can, trying to sort of just cut out the shape of the bars there and fit it. But after that I just popped in the poppers to refit the carpet around the edges, and that's as good as it's going to get, and I am happy with it. So only a couple of little issues, and that is where I chopped the parcel shelf in half. I actually damaged the hole for the popper here, so I'm going to have to work out something for that. It's all secure though, so I could just stick the cap of a popper on there. Yeah, so that's it. Was quite an involved process. You definitely need to be handy with the spanners if you want to do this yourself, but honestly, if I can do it, then anyone can. So anyway, that's it. I hope you enjoyed this, and I hope it's helped you out if you're fitting a roll bar to your MX5. Make sure to subscribe if you're new, and give us a like on this video. Comment down below if you've got any questions, and I'll catch you on the next one.